this episode of Carlie's Couch, we're talking about biases and how they affect your life.
Hello, hello, hello. Happy Monday, or whatever day that you're tuning into us. I am CC Fierce / Carly Carpio on Twitter.
Lextopia here. Hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for listening once again as we end out 2024. Today we have a great episode ahead for you, but first, our question from the couch.
Which apparently people felt very strongly about. So we're going to get into it. This week's question is, if you could be a breakfast cereal, which would you be? But I think I worded it as, if you were a breakfast cereal, which one would you be? But the answer is Cinnamon Toast Crunch. The look is unsuspecting, but the taste and experience is mind-blowing.
A couple of people said Honey Nut Cheerios. Another one said Blueberry or Raisin Bran with a cup of sugar. So that probably means you're old. Well, I can't tell. Because blueberry is weird.
Well, it's like blueberry, and I don't know like how stores are regional and things. I don't know if they were big, but like Count Chocula, Blueberry, like all those Frankenberry, all those things were kind of popular in Oklahoma growing up. So I don't know if that's a thing. But Fruit Loops, Captain Crunch, Wheaties, yuck.
And then somebody said Reese's Puffs, Cookie Crisp, and Honey Bunches of Oats. I wish we had asked why, because I'm curious what was awesome about those. So.
Yeah. Which one would you be?
If I was a breakfast cereal, I'd probably be Raisin Nut Bran.
I don't know if I've had. Oh, it's like Raisin Bran, but with the nuts. Or is it a whole different brand?
It's Raisin Bran, but it has almonds in it.
Oh, that's not Raisin Bran Crunch?
No.
Oh.
And it has the coated raisins with the coated granola stuff on it or whatever.
Oh.
I know it's like almond coated raisins and it has almonds in it.
Oh. I want to ask why.
Just because I like it and because it has the all three different like textures and kind of flavors of sweet, not too sweet, nutty, and then the crunch.
Awesome. I'm not sure. I was stuck between French Toast Crunch, because that was my favorite one growing up. But I was like, that really doesn't have anything to do with me. And then I was like, oh, I do like Raisin Bran Crunch, but I was like, I don't know. So I'm gonna settle for chocolate Cheerios because they actually don't get soggy. I hate soggy cereal, but they have a nice sweetness, but it's not overpowering. They're still decently healthy, and it's a nice treat because you can't always find them. We're used to not be able to.
Yeah, I've never seen those before, or I definitely haven't had them. So
yeah. Thanks for answering. Y'all were very passionate about it. I appreciate this. Okay, so this week's episode, I was on hold for a government agency, and I was just sitting there. Well, I was doing things, but, the person playing music or whatever. I've seen a meme where it's like the person's like sitting on hold, and then a lady's playing a saxophone. Like, man, this music sucks. And she like tears up. But whatever music they were playing, I was on hold so long, it just became part of my background, like my little character music, whatever was going on. And after like 45 minutes, I was like, oh my God, should I hang up? Or like, is it going to be like this every time? Should I just stay on the phone? And then, so I decided to start writing this episode because I felt like it was a sunk cost in the sense that I'm like, oh, I've already invested so much time. I might as well just stay on the phone. So long story longer, I ended up staying on the phone for like another 20 minutes and then it hung up on me. And then I called back a couple of days later, and they had an option that popped up after 10 minutes that, oh, just schedule a call back. And I was like, y'all suckers could have did this 2 days ago, but here we are. So I got all that handled. Anyways, it brought me to thinking, like, let's talk about some biases and how these things affect our lives. Like, a lot of people think that they're super logical, and a lot of us are, or maybe not, or we try to be, and we try to approach things from a all knowledgeable, understanding place, but there's a lot of biases that really affect us and our decisions and our relationships that sometimes we're not even aware of.
Yes, and there's 3 different ones that we're going to talk about today. So as we talk about them, think about how they may be affecting your decisions, because we all do have biases. That's the most important thing to recognize. First of all, we'll start out by defining what a bias is.
People's systematic but flawed patterns of responses to judgment and decision problems, and it was coined by Amos Tversky and Daniel Kahneman in the 1970s. I think Tversky ended up passing away, but Kahneman wrote a book, Thinking Fast and Slow, in 2011.
So can you give us what's the definition, like in layman's terms then, or what would you say a bias is?
in my head, a preconceived notion or understanding that you might have of a thing that might cloud your judgment. And it'll be easier to see when we hop into this first one, but that's off top. Do you have any way to elaborate to make that clear?
I just would think of it as a lens through which you view the world. Yeah, it's, a particular beliefs, wherever they came from. And because you believe those things or have not had those things challenged, then you're going to view the world differently than other people who may not have that lens.
And just throwing this out there, and so if you want to change these, it's an active process after you determine that you have them.
So one of the first biases that we're going to talk about is confirmation bias. For the most part, people tend to seek out and connect with information that already matches what they think and what they believe. And that's why a lot of times people will say they might watch a particular news source, or maybe it's easier for them to say they don't watch a particular news source. Also, the way that social media is even set up in general, algorithms, there's a confirmation bias that's built in because based off of what you look at, they continue to show you more of those similar pieces of content. And so it's actually a thing that you can't really avoid too much, even if you want to be active to look at other sources, that's great. And I would say you should definitely do that. And you can't count on the information you see anymore to be a reflection of the world around you, because it's truly going to be a reflection of what you have looked at or what you have engaged with.
So confirmation bias is the tendency to listen and focus more on things that you already agree or believe with or believe in. And so you see that you readily accept things just because that's what you knew growing up. Like, for example, if you grew up Republican, it's probably easier for you to see things and hear things about Republicans and then believe that, et cetera. And so it actually is unintentional. And I also want to be clear, there's a difference, I think, in like confirmation bias and being in alignment. And so when I said I don't follow people who are out here blatantly disrespecting folks or like believe the earth is flat or don't believe in global warming because that's ignorant and things like that. But I will say when I see stuff in the news, because I know about confirmation bias, I always make sure to research and make sure that that's really what it is and really what's going on with certain things. And all the people I actually spend my time with are alignment, but confirmation bias is an unintentional habit of ours to accept things that we see as truth whenever we hear new information. And so, for example, if you think that guns kill people, people don't kill people, then you're going to see gun control in certain ways and read certain articles and do those things and just build up your certain belief on that. If you don't believe in global warming, you're going to, I don't even know how you don't believe in global warming, but if you don't, then you're going to read articles and see things, and it's just going to confirm your own opinion about it.
Mm-hmm. And what makes it easy is that people know, like this is, at the end of the day, kind of like the news is mass marketing, the things you see in general, everything is marketing, right? And so just like guns kill people, people don't kill people, these are essentially taglines. And so you'll notice and see how people try to get you to connect with a movement through that like tagline. But while you may be saying that, there's so many other pieces of information and things relevant to that ideal and to that whole argument on all sides around gun control. And so confirmation bias may be that, oh, you've heard that before, or, your people in your neighborhood, they like guns, or they have bumper stickers that say NRA or whatever. And so you never seek to challenge. And so with confirmation bias, it's important in general just to get in the habit of challenging all information. I would say even especially good information.
And I'll give a good example. So I'm from Oklahoma, grew up Oklahoma and Texas. My cousins are like all, gun carriers and all those things. I have my concealed carry license in Texas. I used to go shooting all the time. I've even shot out here in California. There's some really great outdoor ranges and things to do. And I used to be super like, not anti-gun control, because that sounds crazy, but like more so like, they're trying to take away rights, because that's what I grew up hearing.
And that's exactly what I meant by they'll get you on the angle. Yep. Oh, they're trying to take something away from you. Oh, you're right. Because, same, like I grew up in North Carolina. And so challenge the whole spectrum, because, no, they're trying to take my rights. But also, we don't need people shooting off 2,000 rounds a second
in children
in our communities. So that's a great example, which I'm sorry I didn't let you finish.
No, you're good.
But that alludes to how the certain ideas might be in your mind, and now you identify, but you're not going beneath the surface.
Yeah, because I didn't know there was more information. All I had heard was that there's gun control. They were trying to take away 2A rights, all these things. Upon further research, I realized, no, they're just trying to add layers so people can't get guns in the same day and go shoot up people when they're angry and not thinking straight. That there's no reason that people should have automatic weapons, and that's actually what they were trying to take away. And there's certain things. And so whatever you believe, like, confirmation bias, you're not considering all the information, is poor choice making, and your inability to see the things from the other side. And that really can impact your own decision making and why you believe a certain thing. Because if you can't explain to me why you're so strongly for a certain thing, you probably haven't evaluated your own beliefs. And so thinking through that and just making sure that you're being open, doing research, trying to understand why you really believe a certain thing, asking yourself questions as to why you're so strongly against or for something, whatever the thing is.
Also, there's confirmation bias tests you can do online. I actually did one that was around like race and diversity. And boy, did not think anybody who had Asian looking eyes was American. So that's what I found out about myself, which even as you because you know things, but the way the test went like online is like, they flash things fast and you say, it was like this person, click when you think the person is American or something like that. And then it was real easy for me to keep being like, dang, I do not see Asian people as American very easily. And it was all kind of different things that happen, in the test, and it builds up and shows and does different things in different ways. But yeah, it's very interesting. And now I like try to think about and challenge that what I'm seeing or what I'm thinking about what I'm seeing in real life as well.
Yeah, that one can be problematic. So think about areas in your life where it might be something like that, where you feel so strongly, you haven't done research, you don't really understand the other side. You take one of those tests. You can Google them, try to find something that's interesting. But
most people think people who look black are more dangerous, and even other black people. So it's interesting how you'll just note certain things when you do those tests.
And the importance of it is not just like, oh, I just want to know that I have this thing. But like, for example, black students are much more likely to be sent to detention or suspended or expelled because they're perceived a certain way by teachers. And so by becoming aware of biases and how we're socialized and what we're grown up in, it really helps us to be better citizens and better people overall.
Another one, another bias that I think affects a lot of people is sunk cost fallacy. Especially, it's very easy to think about this with relationships. How many times have you been in a relationship with somebody, whether you're talking to them, dating them, or been in a full-fledged relationship with them, maybe even married. But what you're thinking is like, you're not exactly happy here, or there's a lot of things that you're kind of evaluating, don't like, etc. But we've been talking for like 5 months now, or we've been in a relationship for 7 years and, it's just got to work. Or I don't know if I would be able to start over again. Whatever the reasoning may be, sunk cost fallacy is you making a decision to act or not act based on how much effort you think you've already put into that journey or into that movement. And I think a lot of times it keeps us from moving forward into a space we need to be in.
And this can happen in so many areas in our lives, but it's like, it's irrational because you stay even if the current costs outweigh the potential benefits, or even if you don't know, just because you feel like maybe you're owed something, or maybe you just put so much, but you can't realize you're just digging deeper into a hole. Something that I think a great example of this, and something that people get stuck in all the time, is gambling. Like they'll spend $100 and be like, okay, $20 is my limit. But then they get back 40 and then they end up spending that. And then it was 60 and then it goes all the way up, and you just keep going because you think that I put this money in, I'm going to get a return. And it doesn't always happen like that.
Although the other day I got my return and then I dipped. So that was that. Another example of sunk cost fallacy is in things like subscriptions that you get. A lot of times you are holding on to things that are just like coming out of your account. For me, actually, I had a few of those, and a few months ago, I went through and just started cutting those too, because I was like, man, I don't really need these channels. Just little things that really, it's like maybe $5 here, $8.99 there.
Adds up.
And I was just like, the fact that I don't need it. And I also will say, once you start like cutting things, it gets really easy to continue doing. So I was glad that I did that.
And it can be something so small as finishing a movie you don't like, finishing a book that you are not enjoying and are bored to tears with, to big things like she said, relationships, but also businesses. If it's not showing anything for years and years and years, it might need to be something else. And the issue is that people have an aversion to loss. The idea of losing something is more powerful than gaining a thing. Like, for example, winning $100 feels good, but losing $100 feels like a lot more impactful. And as a result, like, people will go out of their way to avoid losing the 100, even if it means sacrificing their own self, their own time, their whatever, to chance to win. And so thinking about that as like one reason that we get stuck in the sunk cost fallacy. I think another one is a sense of responsibility or judgment of self. I think a lot of times that happens more in the relationships. It's like, oh man, I try so hard, and I just can't leave. Like, I trusted myself and my intuition, and you don't really want to judge yourself for the failure of things not working out.
Mm-hmm. And then just that part in general, people don't want to feel like they are quitting something. They don't want to feel like a failure, that they spent so much time. Like, the more time you spent trying to build a thing, it's almost like throwing that away feels harder, because like, dang, so am I saying the last 10 years was a waste? I'm a fan of assessing the what ifs of doing something different. It's okay, well, I'm kind of over this. What if I quit, or what if I stopped? And just at least imagining and visualize other things that could be potential things that make you happier to spend your time on, things that could maybe grow or bloom, or are a better use of your actual skills. That's one thing too, is sometimes you hold on to stuff, but then over time you have changed and you have grown in different ways to where actually you might be more effective in other places as well. So I like to kind of assess in that way.
Yeah, I think checking in with yourself is a huge one. So if you notice sunk cost fallacy in your life with anything, as far as like books to relationships to whatever, checking in, and also thinking about what you're so afraid of losing. But stop focusing on that, and like, what can you gain by cutting this thing you might no longer need in your life? Or stop, energy siphoning into things that don't really bring you joy anymore. There's so much more out there. There's always more.
Is there any other ways that you would say to combat it?
Checking in, setting a plan. Like, when I think it's like things like business, stuff like that, like if you could set KPIs, and if your business doesn't meet the certain KPIs or whatever over a certain time, like, that could be a good sign to walk away. Like, these are the things I'm trying to get from it. Very like emotions unattached. If it doesn't reach these things, we can be done. And that can be with anything. But just making sure that you're making decisions from as rational of a place as you can, as level-headed as can be, which is hard sometimes because there's so much guilt and shame around like quitting or feeling like you failed or having to let go of something you really thought was going to work. And it, doesn't have to be. It can be joyful and create a lot of space in your life whenever you decide to let go.
The next bias that we're going to speak about, and the last one for today, is one that also can very much affect your relationships as well as like your overall mood. It's called actor-observer bias. And with this one, this is when you're the one driving and you see somebody jump out into the street. You'd be like, I know you better not jump in front of this car. But if you were the person walking, you'd be like, I know you're not about to hit me. And it's kind of like, depending on which person you were, you would have seen it one way. Mm-hmm. But the other person, if the other person was in your shoes, you would have been like, think about it differently. So, in this one, imagine when you're walking around and it's like you're giving yourself this grace, but you're never giving it to anybody else, how that can kind of affect your levels of frustration, the way you view other people, how you work with them, et cetera, et cetera. So this one very much allows you to take a step back and to put yourself in other people's shoes.
If you find yourself feeling like a victim, or like things are getting done to you, or that people are so inconsiderate all the time, I think this is one to really consider, but also to help improve your relationships, because we really do attribute other people's actions as to like a character flaw a lot of times, whereas whenever we mess up, it's, I was tired, I got cut off in traffic, this happened, all these external things. And I think it's better if we have a more level judgment of both ourselves and everybody else in our lives.
It's really easy to be like, man, they don't care about me. They never do a thing or whatever because of something. But when you actually look at the bigger picture and or the way that they do things, which may just be different from what you're paying attention to, that's actually very much not true. And so for me, actor-observer bias is also a practice of taking a step back to see the bigger picture.
I think of all the ones we've talked about, this one is most important for relationships and improving friendships and just our general connections with one another. It can be so easy to be so judgmental and be like, they're so inconsiderate and this and this and this, when you really never have an idea of what's going on. And so if you, like, next time something happens and somebody really upsets you and you start to be like, they're so inconsiderate, they never do this, take a step back, pause, and then notice, you know, what else it could be. Be curious. Be curious before you start to assign blame, before you start to assign labels to people like they're lazy or they're so rude or they're this, they're that. Like, you really have no idea what's going on. You do not know the reason why everybody is doing everything, even though we be thinking we all knowing inside of our heads, like they do this because of this. You don't really know. So play the curiosity game with yourself. If it's someone that you really love, ask them. Like, hey, you know, why did you do it like that? Or why do you do this way? Not in like a aggressive way, but, you know, if it's somebody you're working with and they, you know, design something different than you would do and you know a shortcut, but they're doing it this way, maybe ask them why, instead of being like, they don't know what they're doing or they don't know how to listen or they blah, blah, blah. Or if it's someone like your partner or if it's someone in your life, like ask whenever they say something to you. You might feel that they're rude, but you could ask like kind of where they're coming from or just checking the pulse, but trying to stay curious and being open and stop assigning blame. Take some time and maybe this week pick one and just see if you notice it in your life or if you're already like, man, that's me. For example, like with the actor-observer one, challenge yourself. Try to be curious because knowing that you have it doesn't change it. And that also doesn't change me when I'm driving and sometimes be like, man, that sucker cut me off when who knows what happened. Like, you know, and just giving more people more grace and more space. Hit us at Carlie's Couch to let us know if you learned anything, if you're dealing with any of these in your life or if you have any tips to help overcome.
Have a great week. Peace.
Bye, y'all.